The NBA playoffs are here, and things are about to get crazy. The West has been stacked more than ever, and the East has a couple of powerhouses with Boston leading the charge. The play-ins have served a one-way ticket home to the Warriors, Kings, Bulls, and the Hawks. Now it's all about surviving the first round, and the most interesting thing to look out for will be the upsets. Can some teams pull it off? And who has the best chances? Let's go through the first round matchups together and predict the outcomes based on what we've seen from these squads so far. Just a quick heads up, some of Game 1s haven't been played at the time of making this video, so feel free to rub it in our faces in the comments if we've got them wrong. The story, starting with the East Coast, the matchups are more than question-provoking. The Celtics have played Miami in 3 out of last 4 conference finals, and if we're to ask Boston's front office at the beginning of the season, who would you like to avoid the most? The answer would probably be the Heat. It's not that there aren't far better teams in the East. Philly, the Bucks, and even the Pacers could be a problem. But the main issue with Miami is they're unpredictable. Yes, they've lost some firepower since last year in Struss and Vincent, but the emergence of Jovic and Jaquez Jr. added a significant amount of help to Jimmy and Bam. The Celtics didn't have Porzingis and Drew last season, so there's almost a 0 chance of Miami's 3-0 surprise like the last time. In fact, they are 3-0 against the Heat this year, so unless something big changes for the South Beach team, maybe we're looking at a potential sweep. It's hard to imagine Jimmy not winning at least one game against the Greens, but now that he's been ruled out due to an injury, it seems that the party's over. The only scenario in which Miami makes this series competitive is in case big injuries happen on Boston's side. If not, they're just too good in every category for the Heat to beat them. If everything goes as usual and no freak accidents occur, Boston takes this one easily in 4-5 games max. The next matchup is one of the most interesting ones within the conference, and it's between Milwaukee and Indiana. The Pacers are 4-1 against the Bucks this year, and everyone around the league has been saying they're Milwaukee's kryptonite. They've lost 2 games at home and 2 more in Indiana, which makes it scary for the eyes of their fans. It's one thing knowing it's a possibility, but it's another when it's already been done. The Pacers are currently in a great shape, and all of their players are healthy and available, contrary to the Bucks' problems with Giannis' injury. So according to the NBA's injury report, the calf issues will stop him from playing in Game 1 and most probably Game 2 in the first round, shifting the power balance heavily towards the Pacers. Then, there's another aspect of Giannis' situation. All the attention will be on Damian Lillard. Whether he shows up or not will decide the Bucks' playoffs' future, and this season hasn't been great for him in terms of consistency. When draft was announced initially, the hype narrative was that Milwaukee would be this unstoppable offensive force, with Dame and Giannis leading the charge. Instead, we've got some nice highlights and exciting finishes, but not the nightmare duo everyone was expecting. Plus, you need defense once the playoffs start, and the Bucks aren't exactly the prime example for that. Add Doc Rivers' coaching genius on top of everything, and you have a recipe for a first-round exit and the first upset of the postseason. Speaking of upsets, it's not a big of a deal when number 5 seed beats number 4, which is what Shaq has predicted about the series between the Cavs and the Magic. Maybe he's a little biased in Orlando's favor, but there's a chance of things going their way. Despite losing Game 1, they've shown that they're ready for the playoffs basketball, despite how young their team is. Experience will probably be the key factor in this series, and Cleveland has more of it. Mitchell had a great night scoring 30 points, and was helped by Mobley and Allen, who added 16 each to keep off the Magic, who were constantly trying to erase that first quarter deficit. However, every time they got closer, Cavs had a response. Darius Garland also had a good overall night with 14, hitting an ISO 3 to seal the game with less than 2 minutes left. Cleveland had a really amazing night, but the most important question is, can they keep up the same efficiency? It's fair to say Orlando lost the game in the first quarter, because later on the Cavs just wouldn't stop scoring. What happens if that stops? The Magic have a well-rounded roster with a couple of players able to explode on a given night, so this matchup promises to be fireworks as the series advances. Both teams are 2-2 this season, so they look like the most even-matched squads in the East, but because of Mitchell's playoffs experience and overall better-looking roster, we'll give them the edge to win this one in 6 or 7. We go to the last matchup of the East between the Knicks and the Philly, where both teams have injury issues, and this is probably a series in which they'll be a major factor. New York has lost Julius Randle for the rest of the season, while Embiid is struggling with that knee for months now. The surgery he had usually makes the recovery longer, but he did return way earlier than expected and played exceptionally well in Game 1. 29 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists with that knee. Make you wonder how different could have things be. The fact Filch entered the playoffs as the number 7 seed will play almost no role in how far they go. But whether Joel can keep that injury at bay, he was doing everything in Game 1. Scoring, hitting threes, passing on the break, even to himself of the board. Actually, that's when his knee started hurting again, and he had to go to the locker, scaring everyone rooting for the city of brotherly love. Brunson played his usual game, followed by Josh Hart and Miles McBride, each scoring 20-plus points. If we're being honest, this series looks like it isn't going to be decided by these team stars, but by how efficient their support crews will be. Mind out, that only goes if Embiid stays present for the entire series. If not, it's bye-bye 76ers. Anyways, with how things currently are, it's highly probable Philly takes 2 games, but no more than that. The West. With all due respect to the number 1 seed OKC, we have to start the West with the reigning champions. They're playing out of their minds this season. Joker is expected to win his 3rd MVP this year, and they have no significant injury problems, which is huge if they want to repeat. On the other side, they have Lakers, who are largely dependent on AD and LeBron. D'Lo is known for his playoffs inconsistency, and the image of Anthony Davis falling down and grabbing his ankle is a possibility anytime during this series. The Nuggets are younger, have a much deeper roster, and just an overall better team. The Lakers will need a miracle to get to the 2nd round. It's not about utilizing this or that. They need a real miracle to advance. Game 1 exposed the Lakers' lack of options. Can AD and LeBron give you 30 every night? Sure, but it looks like that's not enough. A fun fact is Denver has 9 straight wins over the Lakers, so it's fair to say they have their number. Los Angeles might win 1, or even 2 if we're being generous, but that's as far as they can go regarding this series. The series between the OKC and the Pelicans has the potential for more interesting games than Lakers and Denver, but it's still to be seen if Zion returns from that hamstring injury from the play-ins. The Thunder are the youngest 1st seed ever, and if Shea plays at his level, they're a perfect basketball orchestra that New Orleans can't beat 4 times, let alone without Zion. And Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum are not enough to push the needle, and the entire franchise could have gotten their season closure against the Kings if it wasn't for Alvarado, Valanciunas, and others stepping up. Shai, Giddey, Holmgren, and others are just too much for the Pelicans right now. So it seems like this OKC squad will celebrate their first-round victory together. It's just a matter of how many games it will take. And if all things go right for the Thunder, it's not impossible their first sweep happens as well. Moving on, the matchup between the Wolves and the Suns will be tough due to their sheer offensive power. The Wolves have a solid roster, and Edwards can go ballistics at any given night, just like KD, Booker, and Beal. So in the end, it'll come to who has better defense. The answer to that is simple: Minnesota. It's just a matter of coincidence they didn't end up the number 1 seed this year. They could have played either the Pelicans or the Lakers, so they actually got the hardest opponent out of 3. Individually, each of the Suns' main guys can give you 50 alone anytime during the series, maybe even more than once. But they don't have a true point guard running their offense, so if they hit a bump, the most likely scenario is their offensive rhythm just disappears, and they crumble. In addition to that, playoffs Anthony Edwards is a real thing. The guy is just unreal, and judging by his 33 points in Game 1, the Ant-Man could take over this series and carry the Wolves past Phoenix. Finally, one of the hardest series to predict, and the one promising the biggest drama, excitement, and maybe both at the same time, is the matchup between the Clips and the Mavs. They've already played 2 playoff series against each other since Luka arrived to Dallas, and if 3rd time is a charm, we're in for a treat. The Clippers are struggling with the same problem for years. Will Kawhi be healthy? He always misses at least 2-3 games, and this season might be the same. Even with him on the floor, the Clips will have a difficult task. The Mavs are 24/7 since the Garland and Washington trade. Luka is up there in the MVP talks, and Kyrie has switched on the engines lately. If PG, Harden, Russ, and others don't show up big time, everything hints towards Dallas taking the first round in 5 or 6 games. However, if this series turns out to be a shootout, where every game someone else decides to explode for huge numbers, then we might even see Game 7. Knowing these 2 teams, it will be nothing short of a basketball version of the UFC's title fights. The slight edge goes to the Mavs simply because of the way they've been playing recently. But this series is a no-blinker in every sense of the word. That's it for today. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to share your predictions in the comments below, and make sure to hit that subscribe button to keep up with this year's playoffs. Peace out.